This is a story I wrote for a class last semester, actually, called Making Monsters. And the assignment was to take a song, in this case, Knock Knock Knockin' on Heaven's Door by Bob Dylan, not the Guns N' Roses version, thank you very much, and basically coming up with a short story based on what that song made us think of. So I ended up thinking of apocalypses because it just seems like a kind of song that would play when, the world is about to end. And I had this idea for a long time. That's actually an idea I want to incorporate into a much longer work eventually. But I had this idea about, based on a Tumblr post again as well, about the 4 soccer moms of the apocalypse. That's all I'm going to tell you for now. So do enjoy, pretty please, if you so desire, the Apocalypse Club. Thursday was book club night. Of course, through the suburb of Edie Valley there must have been about 10 book clubs that met on Thursday night alone, but they liked to think that theirs was the best. For, at least in their minds, Julia, Bev, Miranda, and Thana were the elite. No, the elite of the elite. Their children were all honor students in the top 5% of their class, and all of them were involved in many other varied activities, not limited to band, orchestra, volleyball, tennis, piano, student council, and of course the ever-popular soccer. Their husbands were all important managers of some company or other, and yet still found time to spend with their loving families. And the 4 themselves were all thin and beautiful, and you never would have guessed that they were each almost 50. Or, at least, that's what they told everyone. No one else knew how they did it. It was impossible. This last assessment was entirely true. No one could have a life so perfect. Yet, somehow, they still managed anyway. Like everyone, of course, each had their share of problems. It just might have been the case that their problems were very different from everyone else's in this small, sleepy suburb. Book club was, for them, a way to let off steam. "So, what did you ladies think of the 3rd chapter?" Julia asked, running her terribly thin, spider-like nails along the delicate surface of her wine glass. Though her diet forbade anything other than a singular piece of seaweed in the morning, wine was apparently okay. Bev's eyes widened. "I thought it was terribly..." She broke off in the middle of her sentence to giggle uncontrollably before coughing delicately into a handkerchief. "Sorry," she apologized. "I can't seem to get rid of this cold. You don't think it has anything to do with refusing to get the flu shot, do you? I've heard those things cause autism, you know." "Oh, not at all," drawled Thana, her long-sleeve arms draped lazily over the couch. Even though it was the middle of June, she had to wear the long sleeves to cover up the somewhat gruesome tattoos that wriggled up her arms. It's not like anyone was ever killed by foregoing potentially life-saving shots or anything. "All right, have fun, you 4, said Miranda's husband, Brad, as he headed out the door to meet the boys for a round of pool at the local supper club. He waved cheerily, and Miranda waved back, setting her wine glass delicately on the IKEA side table. "Don't stay up too late talking about just how many shades of gray are in that book." The women all tittered. He thought that they thought that he didn't know what was actually in that book that they and half the town had been reading, but unbeknownst to him, that was exactly why they were laughing, except that they also knew that he knew and were really just putting on a very good act for his benefit. As he closed the door behind him, the force rattled the shelf displayed rather ostentatiously in the front room, which had on it all of the trophies that Miranda's children had ever won, which included soccer, football, wrestling, baseball, volleyball, tennis, swimming, track, cross-country, which are entirely different things she would have you know, boxing, t-ball, and fencing, among others, of course. She was also incredibly proud of the fact that not one of them was a participation trophy, because the simple fact was, Miranda didn't believe in participation trophies. Those were displayed in the bottom of the trash, in tiny pieces, with the tears of broken-hearted children. The 4 women waited a moment for the sound of Brad's Prius pulling out of the driveway. As soon as they were sure he was gone, they all visibly relaxed, except for Miranda, whose hair burst into flames, which somehow managed to avoid burning any of the overpriced furniture in the living room. Bev's coughing increased in its intensity, her skin turning greener with every second as several warts and other strange growths appeared all over her face and hands. Julia grew even thinner, until all that was left of her was bones stretched loosely over flaky skin. Only Thana remained largely unchanged, though she did pull off her top shirt to reveal the tattoos that really did squirm all up her arms, images of snakes and cloaked figures with size that should have been far too big for them to wield. "How much longer do we have to keep up this facade?" Thana sighed. "I'm driving a minivan, for God's, pardon the language, sake. A minivan!" "Speak for yourself, Death," Bev wheezed and choked. "I've been holding in this cough for the last week and a half. Do you realize just how hard it is to not spread filth and disease everywhere I go?" "Only a little while longer, sisters," Miranda said, her eyes wide in the glow of her hair. "The pieces are falling into place. It's only a matter of time before we can bring utter destruction to this world. And Pestilence, could you please stop oozing onto my couch? I spent a lot of time vacuuming it.
Sorry,
Pestilence squeaked, her green skin managing to redden. Julia shrugged, her red dress practically falling off of her bony shoulder at the motion.
I don't know, she said. I quite enjoyed our time here. So many of these women are so desperate to starve themselves that my job is done for me.
Death simply sighed. Yeah, you keep laughing, Famine, she said, because while you're having fun destroying the world, I'll be working. Oh? Miranda turned to her, her eyes turning flame orange now as well. Do you think that what we do isn't hard? Do you think we're just sitting on our asses while you do all the work? I'll have you know that World War I took years of planning. Years! I even hired 6 assassins to make sure that one prince was murdered at exactly the right time. And you know what? They all almost failed. It was only by sheer coincidence that the last guy finally got him to the back of his head.
You think that's bad war?
Pestilence sat up, at least as best as she could with her numerous coughing fits.
The Black Death was a masterpiece. I kept that shit going for 10 years. I was about as dried out as Famine after I was done.
Yeah, Death sat up, and all those things just make more work for me. I'm tired. While you guys can just do something massive and then go to sleep for 100 years, I'm always working. I haven't had a day off in the last 4,000 years. Famine sighed, suddenly feeling very tired. Maybe she would treat herself to an extra piece of seaweed when she got home. Okay, maybe half of one. A quarter. Yeah, that sounded about right.
Peace, sisters, she intoned. The end is upon us. I've gotten word.
Really? Death leaned forward. When?
2 weeks. We must be ready.
Famine nodded.
Oh, and war?
Yes. War's eyes widened.
I think you may have just set the carpet on fire.